Your proposed initiative would definitely improve the overall mood and esteem of our community. If the people of North Bay know that we are taking action in diminishing the housing crisis, they might feel as though a successful and financially comfortable future here in North Bay is more realistic. Additionally, this initiative would drastically decrease homelessness in North Bay, thus benefiting our healthcare system. Unhoused individuals often require additional medical attention because of their dangerous and unsanitary living conditions. Diminishing our homeless population would relieve the strain on our healthcare system. Furthermore, affordable housing would increase the money circulating in North Bay. When individuals can comfortably afford housing, they can afford to spend more money on local businesses and activities. This increase in circulating money would benefit our economy tremendously. However, your proposal requires a significant amount of funding. This might be difficult to achieve considering North Bay's mayor is a conservative, thus the city is shifting towards neoliberalism. You might struggle to receive the appropriate funding for a big program like this one.
Some potential critiques investors may have with your proposal and some rebuttals for these critiques could be that some community partners you guys mentioned in your slides are already struggling on their own, so they may not be able or willing to help you guys. So if you looked for bigger companies possibly outside of the community, that could really help. There also may be some questions about financial plans or the lack thereof. So by coming up with a financial plan to present to them, they could also be concerned with how this will make them money in the end. So reassuring them that affordable housing units are rarely left vacant or like for very long. So that it's always a steady cash flow. They could also have concerns about community lashback, so showing up prepared and having the support of your community beforehand is really important. Lastly, there would most likely be critiques about the maintenance and upkeep costs and like concerns with that. So reassuring the investors that you will use low-cost materials while building, so it's not too expensive to replace if need be. You could also possibly, in the beginning stages, implement screening processes for prospective tenants to reduce the risk of destruction or vandalism, which would then not make it cost a lot.
So to encourage inclusivity within this initiative, they might consider involving the infected individuals in the conversation about the proposed project. So this would need to include a discussion on social factors, for example, that were mentioned, as well as an affordable rate for rent. So Megan specifically spoke about housing being a political agenda in which these social conditions must be considered. And so to do this, they could speak to the people affected and gather information on which of these conditions would be most beneficial to address in order to give this project the best chance of success. It was also mentioned that creating a policy would allow housing at a lower rent rate, and that would be considered a success for this project. So to do that, I would again suggest speaking to the community members about it and seeing what truly is an accessible rent rate and how this could be like worked with to get a specific idea of what would actually work, rather than just like a broad spectrum that wouldn't like fully address the issues. And in terms of day-to-day delivery, I would say it's important to consider supports that will keep these individuals in a position to stay in this housing, and that could include accessible mental health services, financial planning initiatives, access to food, and things such as that could enable someone to continue to provide financially in the way that they would need to afford this housing overall.
A strength that we noticed in your proposal was your goals to be accomplished section. Your goals were very direct and concise, and we can see that you guys have a very clear vision for what you guys are looking for as an end result. However, when you guys state that you are wanting to receive funding from the government, we found this to be quite broad, and we would suggest narrowing down who specifically you would ask to receive this funding from. We also really enjoyed your mention of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. However, given the subject of your proposal, we do find it to be a bit insignificant. And we only say this because we don't believe that it'll be very helpful to you when your goal is to receive funding for this project. And a more persuasive argument to funders and investors might be the benefit that it would have on the economy. Instead, you could say how research shows that someone who has their basic needs met will have more opportunities to contribute back into society by seeking employment and putting money back into the pockets of our communities. As social workers, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is something that we have studied and that we understand, but most people in the general public have maybe not heard of what it is. And that might be the case for your funders and investors. So if this is something that you really feel passionate about putting into your proposal, then we think more of an explanation would need to be given as to what it entails and its importance. Though we do think that you would run the risk of it not being as concise of a proposal.
Similarly to the topic of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we feel as though mentioning mental health in your proposal may defer investors because us as social workers see the need and how much it is needed. But unfortunately, there's a certain stereotype that people have around individuals with mental health, and it may push them to not accept your proposal. We also feel that bringing mental health into the proposal early on may be too big for the beginning stages. However, once the project gets off the ground and begins to be successful, you could then expand and introduce more secure housing targeted for individuals with mental health issues. A very big strength in your proposal is the part where you guys mentioned using abandoned buildings and transforming them into low-income complexes. By doing so, it reduces the cost of building, which sounds really good to an investor. In the city of North Bay alone, there's many large abandoned buildings sitting vacant. So that would be perfect for this kind of project.
We also noticed that your proposal emphasizes the importance of community partners when gathering information and resources, which definitely strengthens your proposal. You highlighted several good resources like the Food Bank, the Friendship Center, the Crisis Center, and the Gathering Place. However, we do think you could benefit your proposal by reaching out to bigger and more established services outside of North Bay. We noticed that a good portion of your community partners are already struggling to keep their operations afloat, and they might not have the resources that you guys are looking for. Additionally, we would suggest clarifying the relevance of a few suggested community partners, such as the North Bay Public Library, Teachers College graduates, and the Animal Shelter.
Also mentioning the Chinese policies we found to be a great point to make, and it's always good to mention what other countries are doing and what's working for them and what could work for us too. So we thought that that was a really great strength that you guys had in your proposal.
Another strength is the part mentioning who your demographic is, allowing it to be accessible to all ethnic and religious backgrounds, allows it to be inclusive, safe, and welcoming. There's also mention of international students. North Bay saw this issue last year of how much lack there is of housing for students, and having your affordable housing would provide a safe and warm space for any and all students to live at.
We also noticed your incorporation of service users theory in your proposal. We do believe this helps strengthen your proposal because it shows that you are not only reaching out to other community services and resources, but you're also asking service users directly how you can best help them.
A suggestion I have for you to strengthen your proposal would be to speak more on how other countries are handling homelessness and how their blueprint for this issue could work here in Canada. You guys did, of course, mention China, which was great. However, more information on statistically what's working would be helpful to strengthen your proposal. I think that a great country to mention would be Finland, and what they've done to help decrease homelessness. They've done an incredible job and have successfully decreased the homeless population since 1990, and are said to completely eradicate homelessness by 2027. And I think that giving an example like this and their blueprint, what they're doing, really gives your funders and investors a clear visual at how, even though this epidemic is so big, it can be solved, and that there are things that we can do that will work, as other countries have been doing them. Another suggestion that I have for you would be to acknowledge that a lot of your work that's to be done will be with developers, and what your plan is to get them on board as well, explaining you're planning to keep things cost effective will be enticing to the people listening to your proposal, and even like honing in on how low income rental units typically don't stay vacant for very long could be something that would be helpful and enticing. I think that you guys had a lot of great information throughout your proposal, but really narrowing down on how this will be beneficial to your funders, I think is what's really going to help you guys to achieve your goals.